Hey guys, welcome back to MotorShare. I'm Joe.
And I'm Chris, and beside us is the legendary Nissan GT-R R35.
That's right, this car earned itself the nickname Godzilla and hailed as a supercar killer.
It's a true JDM legend that has captured the hearts of many. Today, we're going to find out why it's earned that legendary status.
Let's do it. This is the Nissan R35 GT-R, and today we're going to be diving deep to find out exactly what makes this one of the most iconic sport cars of all time. From its jaw-dropping acceleration to its innovative tech, this car definitely has a story to tell. The story of the Nissan GT-R is one of power, precision and legacy. It all began with the original Skyline GT-R in 1969, a car built to dominate Japan's racetracks. By the time the 1980s rolled around, the GT-R legacy was still being crafted, with each new model pushing boundaries. In 1985, Nissan introduced the R31 Skyline, which brought the GT-R badge closer to what we know today. The R31 debuted the iconic RB series engines, including the RB20 deck. Then, in 1989, Nissan released the R32, the car that earned the nickname Godzilla, named by the Australian car journalist for its raw, untamed power. The R32 stormed the track, dominating Japan's touring car championships with an incredible 29 consecutive wins. The R32 solidified the GT-R badge throughout history as an unstoppable force, outpacing even some of the most prestigious European brands. Building on the R32's reputation, the GT-R continued to evolve with the R33 and R34, each generation advancing Nissan's technology and racing dominance. Then, in 2007, the R35 was born, a true game changer with an advanced all-wheel drive system and jaw-dropping acceleration, launching the GT-R to global fame. The GT-R continued to become not only a track weapon, but a pop culture icon, immortalizing itself throughout the Fast and Furious franchise and earning itself a place in car enthusiast hearts worldwide. Today, the GT-R stands as more than just a car. It's a symbol of Japanese engineering and a legacy of performance. And now, we're here to see if the GT-R R35 still lives up to the nickname Godzilla.
The moment you lay eyes on the R35, it is clear that this car was built to dominate. It's aggressive, it's aerodynamic, and unmistakably a GT-R. Every vent, every line, every contour serves a purpose. Whether it's cooling that massive twin-turbo V6 or improving the downforce at higher speeds. You can't talk about the GT-R without mentioning these tail lights. The four-circle design is as iconic as the GT-R itself. Nissan didn't just design a car, they engineered an absolute weapon. Now that's enough staring at this beautiful car. How about we get behind the wheel and check out the interior? Now that we're inside of the GT-R, the first thing you're going to notice is these stylish bucket seats. They absolutely look gorgeous. The comfort aspect of them are really good. One thing that does annoy me slightly is the seat controls. They're quite difficult to maneuver. It's this one circle scroll that you just can't quite find the right seating position. Then we look up to the gauge cluster, this huge steering wheel and this iconic GT-R badge on your horn. The steering wheel is simplistic. Only the buttons that are super necessary to what you need while you're driving without taking your hands off the steering wheel. Just behind the steering wheel, we have these massive paddle shifters. They are super precise and you get that lovely, satisfying click when you upshift or downshift. In this particular GT-R, it's fitted with carbon fiber dials. It looks stunning. Now we move on to the center console. Nissan worked with the team behind the Gran Turismo game to design the multi-function display here. This will show you all your stats while driving, including your oil pressure, your oil temp, your transmission temp, and everything else you need to know. Just below our display here, everything's super functional. You've got your AC controls, your radio controls, everything's nice and simple, and the buttons are quite satisfying to click, which is super important to me. You can tell that the build quality was there. This is where things get exciting. These 3 switches here, pull them all up into R mode, essentially which is Nissan's sports mode. It'll change your driving and your handling, and you're going to need these modes to initiate launch control. Be careful though, you may not have a gearbox after. Now that's enough of me yapping. How about we get this beast started and hit the road. Right, behind the wheel of the GT-R, there's a few things that stand out straight away. And it's those freaking turbos. Those turbos spoiling they sound so good. Especially with that blow-off valve. You come off the throttle at around 5,000 RPM. It just puts a smile on my face every time. Then we move on to its handling. We're on some tight, windy roads out the back of West Auckland here, and this thing seriously eats the road up. It's a heavy car, but it handles so well. Really grips the road, and I think that's where that 4-wheel drive system comes into real play. The fact that the car's got a bit of weight to it, I really actually like that. It feels like you're actually moving a machine. You're not just dancing and sliding all over the road. It keeps it really tight around these corners. I'm sorry, you just cannot get enough of that noise. Absolutely ridiculous.
Now, for someone that's an absolute JDM fanboy, this is a treat. Imagining myself, you know, in a Initial D episode. Now, my first impressions out here on these windy roads is obviously how big and heavy this car is, especially comparing it to some of the older generations. You know, I think Nissan really stepped away from their slim, you know, their lighter designs on something like the R32. They really made this car a lot bigger, and you can feel it. You can feel the weight trying to throw this thing through these corners. But the amount of power it's got underneath it completely makes up for that weight. With all that power under the hood, it's nice to be able to keep an eye on all of those stats right here with this infotainment system right in the middle. That obviously Nissan worked on with the team at Gran Turismo to design. So it's really great having all those stats right there when you are pushing this car, especially if you want to take it to the track. The car still gives me a ton of confidence pushing it through these corners. The handling's very impressive for the size and weight of the car. I think it's thanks to that all-wheel drive system, that innovative all-wheel drive system underneath the car, which is constantly making adjustments and changes to keep your grip and balance on the road. You know, when you are pushing it through these corners, it's going to send some of that power to those front wheels to keep yourself planted and keep this car grounded.
The only thing that would make this experience a little bit better is a manual transmission, but I can understand why. There's a lot of power when you're behind the wheel of this car, and it's one last thing you want to be worrying about.
So let's talk numbers. Underneath the hood, you got a 3.6 litre twin turbocharged V6 pushing out 545 horsepower and 463 foot-pounds of torque. Now, whether you're going to be able to use all of that power is another question, because this thing is freaking quick. But numbers are just numbers until you get to see what's making them happen. So why don't you let me pull over, we'll have a quick look under the hood.
This car, eh? It's ridiculous.
All right, Chris, I'm going to pop this bonnet. Let's have a quick look at this thing.
Let's. What do we have here?
Stunning. So, Christopher, can you tell me exactly what I'm looking at?
We have Nissan's VR38Det. Each of these engines were hand-built by one of Nissan's master craftsmen, known as Takumi.
So you're telling me all of this was hand-built, handcrafted?
Literally. There's the badge of a craftsman who has built this particular motor. Guys, you're not just buying a car, you're buying an absolute piece of art, and that's just what this is. And it's not just about the power that this car has, it's about those twin turbos and how it seamlessly delivers that. And did you know, Joseph, only the DBA Plus cars came with the red intake colouring?
That is beautiful.
Yeah, 07 to 09 unfortunately did not have that. And it's just a nice little touch, I feel, that they've added.
Stunning. Beautiful. Super impressive to see what is exactly responsible for absolutely catapulting us through these roads.
For me, it's not just about how this engine performs, it's also how it looks. You can tell that they put so much effort into just the design and the way that it sits in the car. It is a stunning looking engine bay, even stock.
Absolutely beautiful.
GT-R doesn't come without its problems. I know Japanese cars are usually very reliable. I've had a Mazda MPS for a very long time and never had an issue with it. But with this, it does come with some common problems. One being that transmission. In the earlier models, especially the CBA cars, they didn't particularly like to be launched a lot of times. The transmissions would give way and it's never a good sign. They did rectify those issues in the DBA models or the 4BA models, which is the 2017 Plus. But to be honest, you don't really need to launch this car. I know it's a big selling point of the GT-R, but pulling this car in second or third gear is absolutely fine. Then it comes with some major quirks, GT-R noises I call them. This car does make a few clunks, especially in that transmission area, a few creaks coming from the front brakes. Totally normal with these things, it really is. And then we move on to the bell housing. Now, that's a common GT-R problem. Notorious for cracking or just having those rattly issues, especially at idle. Super normal, but expensive to replace.
The amount of power it puts on the road is insane. And admittedly, I don't think you get to see any of it when you're out on these back windy roads. This thing really needs a big open space, and we don't have anything like an Autobahn here in New Zealand where you can really push it and find this car's limits. I personally think you really need to track this car to see its full potential.
There are three different models of the GT-R currently. From 2007 to 2009, they had what were called the CBA cars. And then you have what we're driving in, which is a DBA car, which were manufactured from 2010 to 2016. And then the later models, 2017 Plus, which were the 4BAs. Now, the question is always, which GT-R do you get? Personally, I wouldn't touch the 07 to 09s just because of those issues, which they did rectify later in the years. But the answer is, whatever one you can afford really at the end of the day, you're still gonna have a hell of a lot of fun behind the wheel of this beast.
In the GT-R, with all this innovative tech helping push itself to the limits, I feel like this car will always be able to drive faster than you can. This GT-R comes with its own little entity that sits in your passenger seat, your own co-pilot that's screaming at you to push that corner harder, to push your foot through the throttle and not be scared. But I honestly think this car will always be able to drive faster than you can. If you ask me if I'd own one of these, I honestly don't know what my answer would be. If I'm comparing it to other supercars, this thing, without a doubt, deserves a seat at the same table for a third of the price. Bang for buck, this car definitely has supercar stats without that supercar price tag. If you're asking me if I'd own a GT-R, without a doubt, I'm gonna say yes. But I think I'd lean closer to one of the older shapes, like an R32 GT-R. I think I've always preferred that slimmer shape. That's the car that I always looked up to as a kid, the R32 GT-R.
Out of any supercar, would I own one of these or would I have one of these in my garage? I think the smile says it all, to be fair. Absolutely. This thing is like bringing a missile to a fist fight. It is superb. As long as you're not in nose to tail traffic, you're on a back road, this is an absolute dream car. And it certainly should be a goal of yours to get behind or own one of these. Compared to other major supercar brands, Lamborghini, McLaren, Ferrari, you'd compete with these guys easily. That is why it is known for being a supercar killer. Value for money? Absolutely worth every cent.